In this video, I'm going to teach you guys how to grout, unsanded grout for wall tile, so you can grout like a pro and take care of your own bathroom this weekend. So grouting is really simple. There are 5 basic steps: prep, wash, and grout. Now, the idea behind this is you want to go through your wall, take off all your spacers, take off all these little bits of, and you'll see this, sometimes these tile, they come with these little wax layers, okay? And they're designed to keep the tile from touching each other in the box during shipment because this has got a glaze on it. They don't want the glaze scratching during shipping. So you can take a nice sharp 3 or 4 inch knife and you can get underneath that and wipe it all off nice and casual. Careful at the edges, because if you do this too aggressively, you're going to chip the glaze. And just take a little bit of time, be patient about this. Now, if you're going to do a lot of tile work, set these aside and save them for later. Because there's no reason you can't reuse all of your spacers over and over and over and over. Now, the best time to prep your wall after you put the tile on all depends on the kind of cement you use. In this case, we've used an ultralight cement from Mapai, and it is designed to hold the weight of tile in place and not shift around. So what we need is about 1 hour of setup time, and that doesn't even have to finish curing. The goal here is to get this cement set up, and then we can grout the same day we install it if we're quick enough. Now, if you don't want to be that aggressive, you can always tile one day and then grout the next morning. But do not wait 48 hours before you grout. Or should I say, don't wait 48 hours before you clean your wall. Once the cement starts to set up and cure, it gets really, really hard. And it's hard to clean it out if it's in the way. So if you have little bits of cement squished in between your grout lines and you wait a whole weekend and try to tackle it on Monday, you know what I'm talking about. You're going to be in here trying to scrape all that out. You're going to damage your surface. So never install tile unless you are able to be there the next day to do the grout work. The reason I talked about prep work 3 times is because you want to wash your wall 2 or 3 times. Start from the bottom going up, then go from the top down, then try left to right, get different light on it. Make sure you're looking in all of your gaps, vertical and horizontal. Rub out any of these little extra chunks of cement that you see. Remember, once they get wet, if you let that water sit there for about 30 seconds, it'll wipe off real easy the next time you come by. But if you want to just sit there and fight with it for 10 minutes, that'll work too. I'm going to introduce you to Mapai's Caracolor Unsanded Grout. Now this is a polymer modified grout. It's pretty basic in regards to the drying time. So if you read the instructions on the back, this is really simple to follow. They tell you how much water to put in for a whole bag, how to mix it, let it sit, mix it a little bit more, and then you apply it, and then you take a certain amount of time to let it set up before you wash it. And we're going to go through all these steps for you real quick to show you all the nuances, because especially if you're using a colored grout, you can really mess this up and take all the color out of the grout while you're cleaning it. So there is a lot of tricks to know how to do this properly and get a great result, and we're going to show you every one of them. So first thing is you want to add your powder to water. Okay, don't do this backwards and put your powder in first. Now, they want you to put in about 1.5 liters of water for a full bag. And what I'm going to tell you to do next is a little bit unorthodox. You don't put the whole bag in. Save just a handful. There may be an occasion while you're doing grouting, especially if you're a DIYer, that you run into a situation where while you're installing your fixtures, a tile might come loose and you need to reattach it, or you're pushing your day along and you've got a tile that didn't set quite right and it comes loose during the grouting process. Or while you're installing your fixtures, you know, something else could happen and you need just to touch up a grout. You find some dirt or there's a piece of plastic wedge left in the grout line. All of these things happen. It's okay. If you leave a handful of the grout left behind, then you can just mix it up in a little coffee cup and go back and thumb it into the wall and wipe it in, and it'll be no different to anybody in the whole world. Resist the temptation to empty the contents of the bag. I usually just grab it by the corner and save all that for myself for later. That's called emergency supply. Now you're going to want to have a slow mixer for this. A lot of grouts have colorants in them that if you mix too fast will separate. So slow mixing is best. And this is about 3 to 5 minutes. One minute down. And now we let it sit for 5 minutes. Remember, everything we're using here is a chemical reaction and chemical compounds, and so we're whipping in air, and then we're letting it slowly do its thing and setting up, and it'll be a lot more firm when the setting time is done. Okay, so now it's had some time to set up. We're gonna give it one more quick mix just to make sure everything's consistent and ready to go. And that's the consistency you're looking for. It's got a little bit of a flowability to it, but it's still nice and thick. Okay, so there's really a couple basic steps to grouting. One is you want to put the grout in on a 45-degree angle. And I'm gonna have to go over this because I've seen so many YouTube videos where everybody thinks 45-degree angle means the grout float needs to be 45 degrees. No, it means when you hit a line, you don't want to hit the line dead on. Okay, that's 180. You want to hit it at 45 degrees this way. How open or closed you have the grout float really won't affect much. You're still only filling the hole. But you want to go like this across all your lines so that you're pressing grout into the gaps as you go, and you're not getting the edge stuck in the hole and digging it out again. Get your grout float, load it on, and lightly press it on. Okay? Get it on the wall first. There's no sense worrying about being particular until you have grout on the wall. All right? Once you have it on the wall, starting from the bottom, you can run it up. And I'm not pressing hard here, I'm just getting this evenly distributed on the wall. And we have about half an hour to grout the shower before we can start washing. So we want to finish one whole wall at a time. So when it's time to wash, we can wash one whole wall at a time. It's nice and simple. Now you'll notice the grout float has got sharp edges and rounded edges. Now, a lot of guys in the trades have the idea that they don't want to put any grout in the inside corner. I always like to put grout there and then add silicone when I'm finished. If you're one of these folks who doesn't like to put grout there, that's fine. But if you like grout in your corners, easiest way to do it is take your rounded corner up against your tile and just press that in that way. Okay? And that'll give you a pretty consistent fill, top to bottom. And then when you wash it, it leaves just enough of a dent. You can add the silicone afterwards. That way the silicone has a backing. And you still have that flexibility of expansion, contraction. But it is a nice, easy way to get everything filled up. Because adding a lot of silicone into a gap sometimes can be really frustrating. Okay. So I like to do all my, what I call detail work first, which is my edges. And then I go back and do the middle. Okay. There we go. Now my edges are done on that side. Now I'm going to clean the wall, and then it fills up the ridge. And I'm going to use that to press it into the ceiling. Okay? Watch this. Load it up, and then press it in. Now, we're going to come back gently and fill that gap across the top. And then we're going to go do this one more time, relatively aggressive, and really fill that up. Now in this particular case, the tile ran about 3/8 of an inch shy of the ceiling, and it's somewhat noticeable. So what we're going to do when we're all done is we're going to come back with a silicone bead and make that almost invisible. Okay, so clean your tile on an angle and then scrape it off into your corners, into your edging. Not wasting any of your motion. All right. And always clean towards the edging. There we go. Now, we're almost at a point where we are done this entire wall. Now the tiles on the very bottom here got set just late. It's my own fault. I got excited about having a coffee break and I forgot to put them in. So now what I'm going to do, we have the edges all done. We're going to just take our grout float. We're going to turn on an angle and come across on that angle that I was talking about. Okay? And we're going to clean off the excess grout. And I applied it pushing up, and I'm cleaning it off coming down. Those two different directions help to embed all that grout in there and make sure it's in really, really nice fill. Here we go. Now I'm going to come this way. There we go. Good tip is if you wash your tub out before you grout, anything that falls in the tub you can just scoop back up and put back on the wall. If your tub is dirty, anything that falls in the tub will be dirty. You're going to use twice as much grout as you would otherwise. All right, here we go. So next step, and I did that, I don't know what, 20 minutes? So half an hour is not unrealistic if you follow my process. If you use that grout float and you put a little in the end and you're forcing every little, you'll drive yourself crazy. It'll take you forever. Now, you're gonna want to do 2 washes when you're done. Once it's set up, you start going where you started originally and you start washing this, but we're not trying to add so much water that we're taking the color out of the grout. We're just trying to remove excess grout from the area. So this is not a situation where we're using a lot of pressure. It's just an area where you're using a sponge that you've wrung out and then no more water drips out of it, okay? And you're just gently wiping over the area, getting grout off the ceiling and off the tile where you don't want it to be. And as long as your sponge is moving, you'll be fine. If you just touch a spot, it'll all go like stalactites, like a textured ceiling. You might need to use your finger to smooth that out again. Or just get your grout sponge and keep on moving. As the grout stiffens up, you'll be able to polish it a little bit more, so don't be picky. This really is about just back and forth, kind of like wax on, wax off, go in different directions, push the stuff around. Okay, that way it fills up all the little nooks and crannies. All right, try to resist the temptation to push it back and forth in a grout line. It's better to go on an angle. The same way you apply it is how you want to take it off. Go on angles, go in circles. Okay, don't go straight on the grout line. Our goal here was to fill the back and then finish it with silicone. So if you take a little bit too much out, it isn't going to hurt anything. But leaving too much grout in the area will definitely cause you issues. Okay, so I got my sponge and you'll see, just going back and forth. Now, when I get to a point where I feel like it's not being effective, right now, it's dirty. So I switch over to the clean side. Okay, whoop, there we go. Wow, we got a lot down there, don't we? And again, I'm wringing it out pretty good. I don't want to have a lot of water here. Now, in the same way it took about 20 to 30 minutes to put the grout on, you want it to take 20 to 30 minutes to wash your wall. If it only takes 20 minutes to put on and you can wash it in 5 minutes, you're going to get to the other side too fast and you're going to have a different result. This side will be nice and full. That side, all of the grout will be swept out and then full of water. And then when it dries, it'll shrink back inside the gap and look disgusting. So you want to make sure that you let it sit the full 20 minutes that it's supposed to. Now, I'm moving a little bit quick, so I'm going to wait a few more minutes before I tackle this wall. Okay, now resist the temptation to think that because you saw me wash a wall, you know how to grout. There are 2 more major steps left to do here, so we'll see you on the other side of the time lapse. One of the secrets I forgot to mention is when you're done putting your first application of grout on, take the grout that's in the pail that's left and set it aside. Plastic bag or something else. Clean that pail out and use that for clean water, because now it's time to use that grout that you never used yet. I know you might have thought when you first looked at that, well, that looked pretty good comprehensive coverage, but sometimes when you're putting in the grout, you get traps in the air bubbles. And so when you're washing, it exposes them, like up here. Okay, so you want to just take a little bit on your finger, wipe that bad boy in. Okay, done. And then leave a mess on the tile so you'll find it later. There's another air bubble there. Okay. Sometimes it's best just to wipe it right in real hard, come back, and then do a little fill. Okay, leave a mess again so you'll find it. And this is really the inspection process now. And this is your opportunity to look for pinholes, other imperfections. Just be careful on your inside corners. You might see grout been dug out. Resist the temptation to take your grout in your finger and fill that in again on cut tile. That edge is very sharp, and when your fingers are wet, they cut really, really easy. So stay away from your inside corners. You've done the job, you've got some grout in there. That's the backing for your silicone later. Ignore all that and just look for other areas that aren't going to get silicone, like right there. Then you will be very happy with your end result. Air bubbles are normal, and we're going to polish a lot of those in later. As this sets up and dries over the next few minutes, there might be a few more air bubbles that are released. And that is what the next polish of this grout is all about. So as soon as you've thumbed it in, you can come back now. Okay, we're dealing with just little spots. All right, just give it a quick wipe. Get this project all up to the same speed. All right, and looking for those other areas that we marked with extra grout. Good. All right, now the whole job is to the same point. It has been installed and washed once. Now it's time for the second wash. Great time for a clean pail of water. Oh, and warm. Almost hot, actually, dude. Ha.
Get used to it.
That's hot, dude.
I bathe in that temperature.
Oh, man. The next wash is actually not designed for the grout line, it's designed for the tile. And this one is more of a cleaning the surface off. Once this dries, you'll see all this haze, right? This is your enemy. If you let this sit there till tomorrow, then you've got to wipe it down and polish it dry and wet. It's a real pain. So here's my secret. You take your sponge, again on the angle, because you have fresh grout lines, and you're going to just wipe and release, and then turn the dirty side over to the clean side, and then follow next to it. Okay? Hot water. There we go. Now, you're not going to see much of a change on this white wall, but wait until we get to the back wall. Okay, we're using a little bit of a wetter sponge in this situation. All right, there's water in this bad boy. And real gentle, not any pressure here. The secret here is to be gentle. Okay? Now, because these grout lines are going in all kinds of different directions, we want to be real gentle. We're starting this out. You'll see that this grout line will get translated into this tile. Okay, so just give those a quick wipe. We'll do our inside corners first. All right, you can't rush this process, and you got to clean your sponge in between every single wipe. You're really not going to take much off the wall here, but it's going to save you hours of work tomorrow. There we go. Now when you go across the grout line wet like that, it also softens up the grout lines. Makes them look really pretty. Okay? Gets rid of that hard, crusty, bumpy look that you get a lot of times. This same process is for floor tile. After you've polished it in circles, give it a few minutes. When it hazes over, you wipe it the same way. You set the sponge on the floor, go on an angle, flip it over, wipe again. And you can have a really, really clean floor. So the next day when you come in, it's hardly any haze at all. Now for all the guys that do this kind of work for a living, I'll tell you the difference right here. If when you're done your tile work, there's no haze on the tile, the clients will be impressed. Because the industry standard is to leave it dirty and let someone else clean the mess up later. Okay, Well, I'm almost done. Remember, the only other step that's left is the next day, come back with some blue paper towels, those shop towels, something really strong and industrial, or some cut up old shirts and rags, and you buff and you polish the surface of the stone to get rid of whatever haze is left before you add silicone. Remember, if your tile isn't completely clean before you add your silicone, it's going to lift right off. It's not going to last. And remember, don't ever wash any of your gear down the tubs or the sinks. This is Portland cement-based products, and it'll all settle in the P-traps, clog it up, and you're going to get that phone call. So this is the last step when you're grouting, and that is to buff your tile. Now, it may not look like there's a lot to do here, but if you just take a look at taking off that little bit of haze, right? And don't be afraid to get right in the corners efficiently, because the last step of doing any tile job after you're done grouting is add silicone. And if you don't do a good job of putting your grout on and buffing it up, your silicone isn't going to bond very well. So buff your stone and then take a damp, wet rag and just make sure you clean everything off, but buff it first, and then when it starts to get dirty, throw it away. This is not about being cheap, this is about being efficient, okay? So, I know it's just a towel, but once it starts picking up too much dust, it'll just leave it laying on the tile. If you run into a spot where you have just a little bit too much grout on an edge, just get your thumb on there, give it a good rub. There you go, nice and crisp lines. So when you have that kind of a contrast, make sure you buff those lines in with the grout. Get a nice crisp line. That'll make it look fantastic. Now, if you enjoyed this how to grout video, that probably means you're a real DIYer and you've got a lot of big plans for your house. So, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up for the video. But more importantly, check out our videos on some of our other trade secrets like how to do tile, how to paint, how to do drywall, how to tape. Well, that's the last step, and you can see how pretty that looks. And I'm just making sure that I've got a nice surface when I come back in about an hour to do all my silicone work. All right, thanks for joining us. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. Hit the bell for notifications so you get notified every time we put up a video, which is Tuesday and Saturday nights. Don't forget to give us a like and leave your questions in the comment section below. We'll see you again next time.